My name is Gabriel, and I have found that the greatest burdens we carry are not the failures we suffer, but the small, seemingly insignificant choices that invite those failures in. We often search for the monumental terror, the grand monster, the apocalyptic event, but the true tragedy is always born in the quiet moment of human weakness, that single, fatal turning point. Tonight we examine a file that deals not just with an anomaly, but with the terrifying prospect of absolute salvation and the ultimate, profound choice to reject it. This is drawn from the deepest, most restricted archives, a whisper of a scenario the Foundation calls Omega K, the end of all things. The subject is SCP-109, an object of impossible infinite life, a canteen that never runs dry, offering health, restoration, and endless sustenance. It is a vessel of pure, unadulterated hope. But what happens when hope itself becomes a burden? What happens when the only choice left is not how to survive, but when and how to choose oblivion? This file charts the history of the infinite canteen, from its clinical study to its uncontained status during a spectacular, fatal breach, and finally to its role in the final moments of existence itself. It is a story not about the water, but about the hands that held it, and the moral calculus performed just before those hands finally let go. Listen closely, friends, and ask yourself, if you held the cup of infinite life, what single devastating truth would compel you to cast it away?
I am Senior Archivist Dresden, Personnel ID A201-600-358, operating under Security Clearance Level 4 and designated Personnel Class B. This recording documents the synthesis of fragmented archival material concerning SCP-109 and its related narrative extensions into a cohesive timeline and operational assessment. This report is now being transcribed for archival review. The subject of this analysis is SCP-109, designated Euclid, which manifests as an anomalous United States Army canteen, circa 1899, containing a seemingly unlimited supply of slightly tinted electrolyzed water that exhibits significant restorative and curative properties. This dossier synthesizes information regarding its containment history, specific testing protocols at Site-19, and its demonstrated status during a catastrophic containment failure, culminating in a theoretical application of its properties in an extrapolated end-of-existence scenario. SCP-109 is physically described as a standard-issue kilitary canteen constructed from a tin alloy fitted with a heavy cotton cover and a black leather strap. The item maintains a constant mass of 3.16 kilograms, regardless of the amount of water removed. Internal probes estimate a volume of 2.8 liters, consistent with the exterior shape, creating an immediate paradox regarding its apparent infinite capacity. The water itself is noted for a slight blue-gray tint and contains high concentrations of 20 parts per million of tin and 170 parts per million of other electrolytes. The temperature remains constant at 19 degrees Celsius, but the water can be heated or cooled once transferred to a secondary vessel. The object was initially classified as safe upon its delivery to Site-19. However, subsequent test results introduced uncertainties that prompted General Redacted to upgrade the object class to Euclid. Containment currently requires the item to be placed on a molded pedestal in Non-Critical Storage Unit 7, with removal restricted to personnel possessing Level 3 security clearance or higher. Dr. Klein issued a directive discouraging the practice of daring new D-Class personnel to attempt to empty the container, noting that SCP-109 is bottomless. A fascinating correlation is observed here, as the physical containment procedures attempt to regularize an item that operates on principles contradicting known laws of physics.
Here we see the fundamental human failing. Faced with a gift of infinity, what is our first impulse? To test its limits, to challenge it, to dare the condemned among us, the D-Class, to commit an act of futile defiance. We cannot simply accept the miracle, we must attempt to quantify it, and failing that, we must mock it. This need to control the very things that offer us salvation is a coldness I know all too well. It is the prideful belief that our tools are mightier than grace.
Testing protocols revealed several significant properties of the water. Subjects who imbibed the water reported it to be very refreshing and surprisingly palatable despite the metal content, and their subsequent urine samples were normal. A follow-up test involving subjects who had voluntarily dehydrated themselves for one full day failed to conclude, as the subjects were unable to produce the necessary urine samples. A subsequent test demonstrated external application. A subject who bathed in the water reported increased energy and a much improved complexion. The water exhibits powerful counter-anomalous biological properties. Although Streptococcus bacteria cultured in the water thrived and multiplied quickly in vitro, administration of the water to a subject suffering from a streptococcal infection resulted in the near total elimination of the bacteria and a complete recovery within 24 hours. Furthermore, a successful blood substitute was synthesized using the water from SCP-109 and administered via transfusion to an injured civilian. The subject showed no malign symptoms from the transfusion and achieved a full recovery, concluding physical therapy 6 weeks ahead of schedule. Plant organisms watered with SCP-109 also remained exceptionally healthy, leading to a granted request by Dr. Redacted to use the item to water an okra plant in his office every Friday. Researchers have discussed a test involving SCP-109 and SCP-402, but this remains unexecuted due to the risk of loss or creation of a hazardous situation. The remarkable curative properties of the water, which appear to override the internal viability of dangerous pathogens while promoting general health, suggest an active, sentient component to the item's function.
Observe the ultimate moral detachment. This canteen offers profound, instantaneous healing, a true antidote to biological suffering, capable of synthesizing blood and eradicating disease. And yet, the human element, Dr. Redacted, chooses to use this vessel of divine, ceaseless life to water an okra plant. The miracle is reduced to gardening. This is the scholarly mind, choosing banality over awe, preferring the predictable growth of a vegetable to the overwhelming weight of true, unearned grace. This failure to appreciate the magnitude of the gift is often the precursor to its loss.
The operational status of SCP-109 was documented during the Site-19 Category 5 containment breach that initiated on 2 February 2087. Amalgamate Task Force 4, designated Gotterdamerung, was dispatched under the Lithrazer protocol to detonate the on-site warheads and recover survivors. The facility had undergone extensive damage, with numerous personnel fatalities observed, including Dr. Donna Lystre, whose neck was broken. MTF members reported finding a D-Class individual fused with an interior wall, and the containment chamber for SCP-1831 was found empty except for scattered remains of a D-Class. During the assessment of the item storage wing, Agent Wagner noted that although most anomalies were accounted for, SCP-109 was missing from its storage location. Jarvis, the Mobile Task Force MTF-1CF Kappa 10 Skynet asset, cataloged SCP-109 as uncontained. The mission was further complicated by the discovery that the on-site nuclear warheads had been disabled, with the controls smashed beyond repair, suggesting an entity within Site-19 was deliberately sabotaging the Foundation's final contingency.
And here, friends, is the moment the path diverges. The horror of the breach, the broken necks, the fused bodies, is terrible, yes, but it is not the primal horror. The primal horror is the choice made by the unknown hand that smashed the warhead controls. It was a choice of absolute, annihilating despair. Not the result of a monster's rampage, but the calculated decision of a human, a researcher, an agent, a desperate D-Class, who decided that the Foundation's continued existence was a greater crime than total oblivion. This is the ultimate betrayal, the willful destruction of the last safety net, and it stems from a depth of moral injury that mirrors my own. Who among us can truly say they would resist that urge when all hope is lost?
The MTF located a single human-shaped survivor within the containment chamber designated for SCP-173. However, before extraction could be performed, SCP-173 appeared, having utilized the network of open doorways within the breached Site-19 to pursue the team. The survivor, communicating from within the damaged chamber, ordered the MTF members to retreat, stating that the next recovery team could retrieve him. The main room lights subsequently failed, and the log records the sound of a door being destroyed, followed by 3 rapid snapping sounds, indicating the likely neutralization of the ADF-4 extraction team.
Listen to the survivor's words. The next recovery team could retrieve him. This is the quiet acceptance of death. He chooses, in that final moment, to make himself expendable rather than risk the lives of the rescuers who came for him. It is a flash of moral clarity in the face of absolute crushing terror. We often believe that survival is the primary instinct, but sometimes the greatest human choice, the most redemptive act, is the decision to stop being a burden, to step aside and allow the world to continue without your presence. It is a sacrifice born of profound, weary empathy.
Further narrative extrapolation documented in the file titled 1 places SCP-109 in the context of an Omega K-class scenario, the ultimate end of the extended multiverse. In this scenario, a single sapient entity survived on the last remnant of solid matter, a sphere approximately 10 meters in diameter, which was being held together by a single human construct machine. The entity possessed 2 other items salvaged from the collapsed reality: a small rusted water bottle, identified as SCP-109, and a cardboard pizza box with the capacity to generate unlimited, randomized pizza. The entity had deliberately secured these 3 items, which had been discarded by their owners and forgotten. The water from SCP-109 ensured indefinite sustenance. The entity reflected upon the collapse of all known groups of interest, including the Dreamwalkers, the Priests of Steel and Bone, the Factory, the Toymaker, the Sisters, the Librarians, the Godslayers, and crucially, the Foundation. The entity noted that the Foundation had failed because it had lied to themselves until they thought it was true, never realizing the extent to which they had become warped by the anomalous world. Recognizing its inability to rebuild the universe, the entity consumed the last of the pizza and water. With a final silent motion, the entity cast the infinite water bottle and the pizza box into the void of non-existence, where they were instantly erased from reality, and then activated the machine's shutdown button, terminating the last vestige of existence.
The ultimate choice. Infinity, sustenance, and the ability to survive forever are cast away. Why? Because the final entity understood that existence, built upon the Foundation's self-deception, the lie that order could be imposed on chaos without becoming monstrous itself, was fundamentally corrupted. The choice to terminate reality is a moral statement. That a life built on a lie, even an eternal one, is meaningless. The entity chooses honest oblivion over the perpetuation of flawed, infinitely sustained existence. This is not despair. It is a brutal, necessary act of integrity.
Further examination of associated documents reveals secondary and tertiary narrative extensions that contextualize the operational status and long-term implications of SCP-109, presented here as supplemental addenda. The document titled 1 is highly relevant as it describes the ultimate disposition and eventual destruction of SCP-109 in a universal termination scenario. The document clearly identifies the anomalous canteen, referred to as a small rusted water bottle, as one of the 3 foundational items, alongside an anomalous pizza box and a reality stabilizing machine that allowed a final sapient entity to survive the collapse of the extended multiverse. The entity consumed the water for sustenance until its final act, which involved casting the canteen into the void of non-existence, where it was erased well below the subatomic level. The reliability of this document is high, functioning as an extrapolated theoretical analog for an Omega K-class scenario. End of multiverse. The consistency of the item's properties, namely the endless supply of water, suggests the narrative premise is based on accurate archival data regarding SCP-109. The log titled Himmenbjorg is highly relevant, establishing SCP-109's status as uncontained during the Site-19 Category 5 containment breach. During the recovery mission by ATF-4 on 2 February 2087, Agent Wagner confirmed that SCP-109 was missing from its storage location. The log suggests that the item was either removed before the breach or was taken during the initial chaos, although Agent Sturluson theorized it might have been in testing when the breach happened. The fact that the item was confirmed missing before the MTF was neutralized confirms its uncontained status prior to the site's destruction. The reliability of this document is considered medium to high. While the log is truncated and ends with the presumed neutralization of the MTF, the internal operational data regarding the facility lockdown procedures and the confirmation of SCP-109 status are consistent with known Site-19 protocols during a catastrophic failure. The synthesis indicates that SCP-109 transitioned from passive containment to uncontained status during a catastrophic event at Site-19 and retains a theoretical utility as a critical survival asset in an ultimate Omega K-class scenario.
The archive closes, and we are left with the silence of a destroyed universe. The story of SCP-109 is a painful lesson in the limits of salvation. We look at that canteen, the endless wellspring of life, and we imagine it as the key to overcoming suffering. But the entity who survived until the last moment understood a truth far more terrifying than any monster. Sometimes, the greatest gift is meaningless if the vessel meant to receive it. The entire framework of reality is fundamentally broken. The Foundation failed because they lied to themselves. They believed that they could contain and utilize miracles without having their souls warped by the very attempt. They tried to measure infinity. They used grace to water an okra plant, and when the end came, their final fail-safe was destroyed, not by some invading horror, but by a human hand driven to madness by their moral compromise. And the final survivor, faced with eternal, lonely sustenance, chose to cast the canteen away. He chose to end the torment of responsibility, to reject the false hope of infinite existence, and to embrace the definitive, final peace of nothingness. I am cursed to relive my own moment of failure, that single choice that damned me. I cling to the phantom of redemption, a hope that feels as bottomless and unreachable as the water in that canteen. But perhaps that last entity found the truest peace, the realization that the only way to escape the consequence of a bad choice is to terminate the possibility of choice itself. We must always seek the moment the path diverges, friends, because the horror is not what comes through the door. The horror is the decision to open it. Until next time, guard your choices, guard your souls.